everyone, this is Stan, your favorite Polish Taiwan YouTuber. Hope you're all having a great day. Welcome to today's show. Today, let's talk about why China and Xi Jinping's regime are doomed to fail, no matter how hard they try to improve their image internationally. You probably heard about multiple initiatives put forward by the Chinese government, such as Belt and Road or Bait and Rob, as the guys from the China Show put it. Made in China 2025 or Reaching Common Prosperity, which ended up being common poverty actually, by 2021. And to keep this video short, I'll give you the direct answer. These all failed. And the reason for it is simple: you cannot reach economic prosperity without giving your people basic freedoms. Truly free market encourages competition, provides opportunities and promotes independent thinking and economic development. But Xi Jinping and his regime are stuck in Mao's time, and they're afraid to give Chinese people any kind of freedom. As with economic freedom comes independent thinking, and people who think independently will definitely challenge the legitimacy of the CCP. Just think about it. Which regime destroyed thousands-year-old Chinese cultural heritage? Which regime massacred Chinese elites and free thinkers during the Cultural Revolution? Which regime killed innocent students with tanks in 1989? Which regime persecutes anyone who disagrees with what the Communist Party does? Of course, that's the CCP. And the CCP is scared of the Chinese people. Even more, the CCP hates Chinese people, Chinese culture, Chinese values, and Chinese traditions. The only thing those CCP leaders value is their ability to stay in power and control the population. With all of these policies and initiatives put forward by the CCP, you might think, well, it seems as if they are going into different directions all the time, and what they do doesn't make sense, like at all. They want to invest into infrastructure overseas and at the same time forcing the domestic businesses to close and expel the urban youth from the cities. A sane person wouldn't do that, right? Yes, if this person cares for the future of the country, but it's Xi Jinping we're talking about. The guy cares only for his imperial ambitions, and for how long can he stay in power. The so-called the Great Rejuvenation of Chinese nation means militarization of society and getting ready for further military expansion, basically legitimizing the CCP's regime and Xi Jinping for years to come. As he wants to expand, first making the other countries dependent on China, basically buying them out or forcing them to fall into that trap, and then getting rid of all the voices that oppose Xi Jinping. All the talk about China's economic development becomes less relevant, as Xi Jinping doesn't care about economic development at all. In Hermit Kingdom that Xi wants to turn China in, economy doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is how great the totalitarian leader is and how loyal the people are to him. And this loyalty doesn't have to be achieved by economic development. Military expansionism, fear of persecution, and the police state work just fine. China is not a free market state. It has never been. The CCP created an illusion that they gave some economic freedoms to the people, but in reality, all of the enterprises had CCP officials in charge. On paper, it looks like a private company, but in reality, everything is controlled by the state. And the people know it. But while China's economy made it possible for the people to earn a living, Chinese people preferred to stay silent. And you can't blame them for it, right? They still remembered massacres and famines, exploitation and terror of Mao's times. They were too scared of the CCP. The people are scared of the CCP, and the CCP is afraid of the people, so China could maintain that illusionary balance for quite a long time. But when Xi Jinping came to power, everything started to change. His personal grip over all the branches of power is totally different from Jiang Zemin's or Hu Jintao's times. These were more ambiguous, and their regime still had some checks and balances. Yes, it was a one-party dictatorship, but you could hear different voices within that one party. Now it's only one voice, one chairman, one party, one country. Sounds like a certain German dictator that launched the Second World War, right? Still, to keep the investments in and to create a new illusion that everything is alright in China, Xi Jinping launched many economic initiatives like Belt and Road, Made in China 2025, Xiong'an New Area, where they wanted to move some of the non-core functions of China's capital, and which ended up being a tofu drag building park where nobody wants to live and work, dynamic zero COVID policies that led to thousands of people actually getting COVID, and at the same time, losing access to basic help, common prosperity by 2021, 2021 that caused the businesses to leave and the people actually getting poorer, or the modern go into the mountains and the countryside campaign, which is just mimicking some of Mao's most outrageous policies, forcing urban youth to leave the cities and go to the countryside. Basically, Mao and Xi wanted to put the people who might challenge them, meaning urban educated youth, as far away from them as they could. Do you know that these policies have in common? They all failed. Belt and Road is just a new version of colonialism. It's a debt trap set to force the developing countries to lose their sovereignty to China. Yes, infrastructure projects sound tempting, but in the end, the whole Belt and Road initiative has only one goal: subjugation, making you dependent on China. And the worst thing is that the citizens of the countries that participate get nothing in result. All the money ends up in the pockets of corrupt elites that are willing to sell their countries to the CCP. And yeah, many countries fell victims to shady infrastructure projects, dumping during bidding stages with raising prices afterwards, or directly buying out corrupt officials. The CCP wants your money and they want you to depend on them. Yes, they'll build a port in your country, but in the end, it's only Chinese vessels that would be able to use it. And you'll just fall in the debt trap till the end of your life. Made in China 2025 is a beautiful name covering technology theft and tax rebates for the companies that sell their goods internationally. Basically, the CCP wants to get the biggest market share for the Chinese products abroad and force all the smaller businesses to die out. It is very hard to compete against a Chinese product when it's made by slave labor, stolen technology, and a company that produced it got a tax rebate from the government in the end. I'd better call the so-called Made in China 2025 Scam by China 2025. It's a more suitable name. The dynamic zero COVID policy was another absurd policy put forward by the CCP during the pandemic, forcing people to take PCR tests every day, basically making the CCP-affiliated companies that produce those tests rich, imposing dynamic lockdowns, mostly in the areas where people started taking on the streets to protest against the CCP, and falsifying data on new COVID cases. To sum it all up, making the lives of Chinese people miserable, making companies go bankrupt for a single purpose: make the CCP look as if they're working for the benefit of the people. Common Prosperity by 2021, or Common Poverty, which was just a propaganda campaign by the CCP and Xi Jinping. What did the so-called poverty alleviation done by the CCP look like? Well, if your salary is below the poverty level, they'll just lower the poverty level in your region to match your salary. You had your own house in the countryside. They'll tear it down and will force you to move into a city and will force you to work for the government even if you're in your 70s. Forced labor for minimum wage is portrayed as poverty alleviation. And that is just a textbook CCP. And the most recent Go into the Mountains and Down the Countryside campaign, targeting urban youth in China. From the first glance, it looks like a measure to fight youth unemployment, which has reached more than 20% already, and that's just the official statistics. But in reality, they're just forcing the young people to leave the cities, not to protest. No matter what education you receive and what your profession is, you'll be forced to leave the cities, so that Xi Jinping and the CCP officials sleep well, knowing that young people won't challenge their authority. All of these policies and campaigns have only one goal: to extend Xi Jinping's and CCP's control over Chinese society. The CCP doesn't care about the economy. They don't care if China has competitive professionals and free thinkers. They just want obedient slaves that are loyal to the CCP. They hate the young people. They hate anything created that doesn't fit into the black and grey communist dystopia. And they do it all for only one purpose: to stay in power eternally. So I know that many people from Taiwan watch my channel. Do you really think that the CCP-run China is a trustworthy partner for Taiwan? Do you really think that a country that has always been lying to the world won't steal technologies from the Taiwanese companies willing to invest in China? Do you really think if you negotiate and cooperate with the CCP, they will leave you alone? If you do, just look at the recent developments of the CCP and look into the history of China after 1949. The only two things that CCP is consistent in is lies and murder. Don't fall victim to this criminal gang pretending to be a government. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please press like, subscribe and share. This is Stan. I see you in the next one. Bye bye!